Did I commit R. I. 21 meters. Live in a share house with my 29F colleague and close friend. We have been living together for about a year and I consider her my best friend. The other week we were super drunk and high and we hooked up. It was 100% consensual to begin with, however while doing the deed I was super focused, trying to do my best. When I finally looked up I realized she had passed out. I instantly stopped and rolled over and tried to go to sleep. I felt awful. How long had she been passed out? Did I take advantage of her, etc.? When we woke up in the morning I had to tell her what happened out of guilt. She laughed, brushed it off, and told me it wasn't the first time that happened. She was completely fine, however I felt super guilty and anxious. I have a sister. A mother, and Saw is one of the biggest things I despise in the world. I still feel guilty even though she was, and still is, not fussed about the event. Is what happened okay? You stopped as soon as you realized she passed out, so you did all that you could. That's okay. My guy. I don't think you took advantage of her. You stopped as soon as you saw and came clean. Sure, it feels super awkward and you feel bad, but it's not what you thought it was. It was consensual and you stopped as soon as you saw. See it as a bit of a learning curve and try to avoid hookups when either party are super drunk. But honestly, I've fallen asleep, passed out during, and I just felt guilty because I didn't want my partner to think I was bored. If it was all consensual as you began and you stopped when you realize you've done all you can. She sounds like she isn't fazed. But if you're still concerned, it wouldn't hurt just to double check she's okay, just in case she was laughing it off through embarrassment or a bit of sober clarity. You can only take her word and reassure yourself that you did the right thing as soon as you noticed. Also, at 21, you're going to encounter situations like this in the future, and knowing you do what is right during hookups is important. So being sober enough to make the call is a good way to avoid any confusion. No. If you'd carried on, then there'd be an issue. You stopped as soon as you realized, and told her, "You're good. Don't stress." I mean, you were both crossed, so you didn't use her being impaired to take advantage of her. If you had been sober, it might have been a different story. But not always, and that gray area is something that should be talked about with you too if you plan to continue sleeping together, as well as boundaries regarding situations like this. You're 21. You'll make mistakes. But the fact that you feel this guilty despite doing nothing wrong should prove to you that you aren't some asshole who took advantage of a sleeping person. You realize that, if you had noticed sooner, you would have stopped. And stopped when you did. You realize that this could be something bad. Despite the fact that you did the right thing when you realized what was happening, and feel bad about it. You are in no way a bad person. And you didn't do anything wrong. I feel like you should sit down with your friend and have a longer conversation about boundaries, intoxication, and whether you will continue this type of FWB relationship or if sex is strictly off the table. Take some time away if you need to and are able. And maybe talk to a counselor if you have access to one. Honestly, I agree that you shouldn't be so hard on yourself. But I would also encourage you to avoid new hookups fueled by drugs for exactly this reason. Your friend was fine, but another person could be more bothered after the fact. Some people are more sensitive to this stuff. And there's so much BS about sex floating around that many could regret it afterwards even if they were relatively cognizant. In a way it feels scarier. But it usually makes for better sex and more thorough consent to hook up without being inebriated. I don't think you did anything wrong. But what exactly were you focusing on so hard you didn't notice your partner had passed out? I'd definitely prefer a partner finish early than have a partner so spaced out they didn't notice me at all. Forgive yourself. She said it's okay. You stopped as soon as you knew, and that's all you could have done. If you had kept going to finish, then I'd have a different opinion. There is too many people posting that I can reply to. Thank you to anyone with constructive advice and feedback. I feel a lot better and hope I can take your advice to avoid anything like this in my future. She was awake and gave consent. She then passed out in the middle of it. You stopped when you saw she was out. That isn't R. I think that you should follow her lead here. It might be helpful to have a conversation with her about it. But if she doesn't seem bothered by what happened and isn't very interested in talking about it, that's valid on her part too. You could let her know that if she ever wanted to talk about it, you're willing. And if there's anything you can do to make her more comfortable, you're open to hearing it. For a lot of women in particular, we've faced a lot of worse situations, so something like this happening with someone she trusts may truly not seem like a big deal to her. Unfortunately, not every situation is as purely black and white as we expect them to be. Going forward, maybe you can make a point of doing more check-ins during hookups. Even saying something like, "Do you like that?" could work while not killing the mood. I would say that this situation between friends that were both conscious and willing when things started isn't an indication that you have bad intentions, are a bad person, or anything like that. I think getting hung up on language is usually not helpful in these situations. Did you do something bad while knowing it was bad? No. Did you do something that, if you did it again, could cause a person psychological harm? Yes. Is it possible to avoid doing it again? Probably. Based on your description of being too focused and not paying enough attention to your sex partner to notice whether they're conscious. Is the other person involved hurt? Doesn't sound like it, but it could be that she won't process it till later and will eventually feel a little weird. The biggest thing is about how you handle things moving forward. If she wants to talk more, your job is not to get defensive. Good luck. Bro. If she says that it's okay, who else should be better in saying whether it was okay or not? What's the point of asking strangers on the internet in that case? Let's say people validate your feeling and say that you sad her. Then what? You wanna go tell her that she's wrong about how she feels about it? Kinda patronizing. You're okay. It was consensual, and the minute you noticed, you stopped. Had you noticed and continued, would have been a completely different story. Don't overthink it. It was an accident and she said it's okay. You were upfront and honest. Your conscience should be clear. As a SAW survivor, you did nothing wrong, my guy. It was consensual when it started. You stopped the second you realized she was no longer able to continue giving consent. I think how she feels about the incident is way more important than what anyone else thinks or wants to label it. It's good that you started that conversation with her. If she says it didn't bother her, you should be fine. In the future though, perhaps try to avoid sexual activity at all if you're so drunk that you are in danger of passing out, falling, etc. Sex isn't that fun when you're super hammered anyways. Legally, a person cannot consent while under the influence. This is to protect a person if they have been taken advantage of. Realistically, people have sex under the influence all the time. People in happy, great relationships like going out, getting drunk, and having sloppy drunk sex. This is, however, very much a gray area, my friend. I'd recommend not doing this when not communicated prior that it would be okay, or without being in a happy, healthy relationship with the person. Best to be more cautious, right? Sounds like there was 100% consent. She just couldn't keep up and happened to fall asleep. I think you are okay. Especially since she said it's okay. She probably feels bad for falling asleep on you. It's not like you found her asleep and took advantage of her. There's a big difference there. It's good that you stopped and she is not upset about what happened. But in the future you need to check in on and pay more attention to the people you are having sex with. Having sex with a woman who is passed out isn't okay even if that wasn't your intention.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.